My name is Rachel Houghton. I serve as Chief Digital Officer and Deputy Secretary for Technology for Governor Cuomo. And on behalf of Governor Andrew M. Cuomo and Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, I am honored to welcome you here today. Thank you for joining us. It is our privilege to be joined today by esteemed guests. And I would like to acknowledge them, Senator Betty Little, Senator Patty Ritchie, Assemblyman Dan Stee, Clinton County Chairman Sam Dyer, Essex County Chairman Randy Douglas, Franklin County Chairman Billy Jones, Hamilton County Chairman Bill Farber, Lewis County Chairman Mike Tabolt, hopefully I got that correct, Lake Placid Village Mayor Craig Randall, North Country REDC Co-Chair and President of Clarkson University Tony Collins, North Country REDC Co-Chair and President of the North Country Chamber of Commerce Gary Douglas, and Chairman of the ORDA Board of Directors, Pat Barrett. Thank you for joining us. Let's give them a round of applause. And we have an exciting program today, just to give you a sense of how it's going to go. After I speak, you'll hear from County Chairman Bill Farber, followed by County Chairman Randy Douglas, Assemblyman Dan Stee, Senator Betty Little, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, and then I'll thank you for joining us. So once again, it is an honor to be here today and talk about the future of innovation in New York State. That future is especially bright thanks to Governor Cuomo's leadership, and it is one that truly puts people first. As a result of the governor's vision, New York has done more to invest in its technology future than any other state in the nation. In 2014 alone, New York led the nation in the breadth and scope of initiatives in technology infrastructure, education, data strategy, digital services, and tech sector support. Some highlights. In 2014, New Yorkers approved $2 billion in funding to upgrade public schools for the future, voting for the Smart Schools Bond Act proposed by Governor Cuomo. If we want to prepare our students for the future, our schools must have modern tools. And the $2 billion Smart Schools Bond Act will help to make this a reality by supporting critical infrastructure and technology in the classroom. In addition, in 2014, more than 600 students were awarded college scholarships for degrees in so-called STEM subjects: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The scholarships cover all remaining tuition and encourage students to study high-demand STEM subjects at state university and city university schools, and then apply their knowledge locally by working in the New York economy for 5 years. Cultivating talent is critical to New York's tech sector, and these scholarships support a competitive local workforce. And last year, the state continued to invest in its open data program, Open New York, supporting transparency and collaboration. In 2014, Open New York was rated a perfect score among the top in the nation by the nonprofit Center for Data Innovation. Open New York now offers over 1,000 data sets and over 80 million public records, a 325% increase since its launch. And to connect New Yorkers with Open New York data and spur collaboration, we participated in hackathons and app challenges across the state last year. Further, to bolster the tech industry, in 2014, the state provided over $100 million in support to New York tech companies, creating an estimated 6,900 new jobs in that sector. Startup New York alone added over 1,000 of those estimated new jobs to the state and welcomed 20 new companies to tax-free zones. From BuzzFeed to Quirky, Solar City to Modern Meadow, some of the companies that we worked with, Governor Cuomo made it a priority to support tech firms across the state. And finally, for the first time since 1998, New York State updated its official website, ny.gov, with new design and features that elevate customer service as never before. The personalized website provides New Yorkers with info like travel updates, emergency alerts, job listings, state parks, and historic sites, customized to their location. The site also works seamlessly on any device and screen, from mobile phone to desktop. And already we've seen the results. Traffic has more than doubled, mobile users are up, and the website has garnered accolades from Fast Company, Design Week, and the Wall Street Journal. But none of these milestones matter without the critical foundation of broadband to ensure that all New Yorkers can participate, grow, and embrace their potential in the 21st century. That is why Governor Cuomo has invested over $70 million, more than any other state, in broadband infrastructure to date. And it's why the governor hosted the New York State Broadband Summit last year, convening over 300 of the top experts in broadband access and adoption to welcome their input and find ways to work together. But New York State won't stop there. Today's announcement embraces New York's unparalleled opportunity and takes a historic step to realize our shared potential. Governor Cuomo's new New York broadband program will be the largest universal broadband deployment in the nation, investing up to $1 billion in both public and private resources to connect every New Yorker to high-speed internet by 2019. Thank you. With a state investment of $500 million in capital funds from bank settlements, the program will incentivize the private sector to expand high-speed broadband access to underserved New Yorkers, offering a one-to-one financial match that will encourage competition and drive down rates. The plan will elevate broadband speeds in underserved areas to previously unheard of levels, including a minimum speed of 100 megabits per second, more than 10 times the federal definition of broadband. The broadband program will also build on the successful model of community involvement that has guided the Connect New York program. Each regional economic development council will be required to submit a comprehensive plan to the state that considers underserved areas, local demand, and cost-effective strategies for deploying access. To support the success of the program, New York State will also explore ways to save money for residents, businesses, and technology partners. Strategic steps will include streamlining permitting, embracing so-called dig once and make ready policies that minimize costs and disruptions to the public, and establishing better state agency coordination. Finally, the state will also explore how best to leverage its own assets, including the more than 500 miles of fiber that runs along the New York State Thruway. As a result of the new New York broadband program, New York will make the largest investment of any state in the nation to achieve universal broadband deployment. And on January 1st, 2019, New Yorkers will have the fastest broadband speeds of any state in the country. Very exciting. It's what New Yorkers deserve, and it's what our state demands to fulfill New York's innovative potential. Once again, it is an honor to be here with you today, with Lieutenant Governor Hochul and all of you to celebrate this historic milestone in New York's history. Thank you for helping to make New York the state of opportunity. And with that, I would like to turn the program over to Bill Farber, Hamilton County Chairman. Thank you.
Well, I really can't think of an announcement that could be more important or more exciting for the North Country here this morning. Really, when you think about New York State's great history and some of the legacy decisions that have been made in Albany, whether it was the Erie Canal or the New York State Thruway, when you think about the impact of broadband and the technology issues on where New York State needs to go to lead the nation to really compete in a world economy, there is nothing that could be more critical to this state at this moment than technology. And I think I'm particularly pleased that this particular program is going to do that, recognize that, and work on that in a way that's not going to leave the rural parts of New York State behind. Clearly, the need for broadband, the need for technology, the need for better cell service was something that was identified early on by the regional councils. Frankly, it was an issue that I was working on prior to the regional councils. And I think if you just reflect back for a minute on what was occurring before the regional councils and some of the struggles that some of us had in trying to move issues like this that were so important forward, we didn't ever seem to make very much progress. You had local government working in a silo. You had business in the private sector trying to do what they could do. You had the university structures doing what they could try to do. You had Albany headed in their direction. And I think what's really transformational about what's happened in New York with the regional councils is it really has created teams. And make no mistake about this, this has really been the function of a team effort, a team initiative, something that has come up from the bottom, something that we identified as an issue, and I'm pretty proud of the North Country, so make no secret, I think the North Country REDC really showed an extraordinary amount of leadership on this. I had the privilege and the opportunity to work with people like Tony Collins from Clarkson and understand the technology, and Gary Douglas to bring in the business sector and understand how that worked. And I had some insight I would like to think with respect to things like our rural schools and our healthcare facilities and those things that needed broadband, that needed stronger and better technology. And we're currently being served by programs that siloed the thinking. You could get money for libraries, you could get money for broadband for schools, but nary the two shall meet. And it did very little to enhance the quality of life for the rest of your constituency. We came into this regional council process and we were told it was going to be a partnership. We were told it was going to be a team effort. And frankly, in New York at that point in time, everybody was pretty cynical. We were living in a state where there was a high level of dysfunction, and people really genuinely wondered if people could work together. And in my opinion, what made a real difference was leadership. We saw a governor take office that had a vision that this could work and this could happen. And frankly, to his credit, he made it happen. He made it happen in two ways. He exhumed the vision, but he also backed up what he said he was committed to. There was a lot of cynicism around the North Country, around the Adirondacks, even within the North Country REDC initially, about whether this was really going to be a team effort. And when we developed solutions and ideas, would they really percolate up in a way that got gravity and got state reaction? Well, I'm here to tell you, we're here this morning celebrating one of the priorities that the North Country had, one of the foundational issues that we identified as an enormous need, and the fact that the state of New York, this governor, this administration is reacting to it. They're putting $500 million of global New York resources towards making this happen and transforming not only the Adirondack Park, but all of New York State. And we're going to do it this time without leaving the rural parts of this state behind. That is a tribute to the way a team truly should function. It's a tribute to this administration, this governor, and it's a team that I've been pleased and proud to be a part of. I think we've accomplished some great things, and I really believe that technology and broadband and bandwidth and having cellular service in areas like the Adirondack Park so that people really can come here and the quality of life is such that we can attract young people and people fresh out of college and create that continuum so people want to come here and live here is something that is as much of a legacy issue today as the thruway in the Erie Canal was yesterday. And I want to thank the governor, I want to thank his administration, I want to thank the leadership of Gary and Tony and our members of the legislature that have really made this possible. This is a great announcement. I'm pleased to be part of it. And I'm told that next I'm introducing the man that reminds me all the time that he is the true board chair from the Adirondacks, Mr. Randall T. Douglas.
Thank you, Bill, for that introduction. I appreciate it. And we have take some jabs at each other every once in a while, Sam Dyer and Billy Farber and Billy Jones and Michael Talbot. You know, it's a pleasure to get to know these guys and work with them on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, to bring things that the light of the needs of the North Country to the state level, and we appreciate working with all of you. It's a privilege to welcome the Lieutenant Governor here today, too. This is, I believe, her second visit to the North Country. She came back in October in the middle of the campaign, visited Plattsburgh, visited the town of Jay, the town of Keene, and here in Lake Placid. And we know we have a North Country friend in Governor Andrew Cuomo, but we know now that we certainly have another friend in Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. So I'm very privileged to welcome you here to Essex County. Couple of acknowledgments that I'd like to make. Some of my colleagues that are here today from Essex County. Our Essex County Clerk, Joseph Provenza. Joe. Essex County District Attorney, Christy Sprague. Essex County Board of Supervisors, George Cannon, Bill Farabee, the Vice Chairman, Ed Gardner, Sean Gillelan, Bill Grinnell, Charlie Harrington, Mike Marnell, Noel Merrihew, Steve McNally, and Ron Moore, and Randy Preston. So thank you all for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to have you all here today. Essex County is obviously a very rural region in the North Country and is home to many communities that either don't have access to high-speed broadband connections or have only very limited access. But given the growth of our technology sector, the shift of our schools towards digital learning, and the department of our health practices on top-of-the-line equipment, the need for broadband totally has never been so critical. Finally, we will be able to bring our businesses, health facilities, schools, and community institutions up to the 21st century standards. This will jumpstart the competition in our private sector and provide the economic boost this region really needs. It will give our local businesses the tools to transfer strategies and ideas, our students technology to more efficiently do their homework, patients the ability to receive leading medical care, and community institutions greater access to resources that offer services and programs to its citizens. This is an obvious example of New York State government coming together and working to provide the developments that are much needed here in the North Country. By working together with state and local leaders, we will lay the groundwork for vital improvements to facilities and households, and I am confident in its success will resonate across the region. It is a privilege to have this announcement made here in Lake Placid, historical Lake Placid, home of the 1932 and 80 Winter Olympic Games, and it's a privilege to have the Lieutenant Governor here with us. And now it is my honor to introduce our great assemblyman, our fearless leader, tireless leader, Dan Stack.
Thanks, Chairman Douglas. I guess lunch is on me today. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for coming up here to the North Country today. It's a pleasure to have you there, and good morning and welcome all. I've got a prepared talking points to work off of, but in listening to Bill Farber talk, very tough to follow. Bill, I couldn't echo your sentiments anymore. I couldn't agree with them anymore. But being in this room, I'm going to go off my talking points and just reflect on the governor's Winter Adirondack Challenge that he had last winter, and we had a lot of my colleagues, Senator Little and Senator Ritchie's colleagues, come up from largely downstate to beautiful Adirondacks to enjoy winter in the park. And I enjoyed seeing some of my colleagues get off the bus and greet them here in this room, and welcome them and tell me how beautiful it was here. And I said, they rode up the bus from Albany, and I said, you remember when you got to Glens Falls at exit 18? And they said, yeah. I said, well, that's where I live. That's where my district southern boundary is. And pointing that out to them that, all the legislature has the same population. So my 130,000 people encompasses a big chunk of New York. And I make that point with my downstate colleagues and anyone that'll listen in Albany to remind them that it isn't a cookie cutter state. It isn't one size fits all. We have different problems, different challenges, different assets and resources. But for a long time, the governor's been very good at pointing this out, and I think very fairly so, that we felt in the North Country that Albany had forgotten us, that with 9 million people living in New York City, it's easy to get caught into their cadence and the march of the beat of their drum. And while in a democracy, it's understandable that 9 million people swing a big stick. We're taxpayers and residents too. We're New Yorkers too. But infrastructure challenges are more difficult when you start running the numbers and you get down ultimately to that cost per mile, that cost per user, that cost per kilowatt hour. That the numbers are challenging for us, and it's very easy for somebody from New York City to point out we're more efficient if you give us this money. And so what happens is we enter into a spiral where we're not getting our investment and we're not keeping up with our infrastructure. It's great to see so many of my peers from local government, and certainly Senator Little started in local government, but we've all been championing and talking about infrastructure needs, whether they're roads and bridges, which again, I think the state is doing a great job. That's a topic for a different day, but a lot of work in our roads and bridges is coming. But equally as important when you start talking about infrastructure today is access to broadband and internet. And and it's not a convenience. This isn't about the kids with their heads buried in the tablet playing internet games somewhere in northern New York. It's a convenience factor for sure, but it's also a public safety factor that first responders have to have access to this. It's certainly a business issue. I always liken it to if you don't have access to high-speed internet, that's like a business not having a curb cut on a highway. All right, I mean, it closes you down. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage. And then school kids. You know, what kid preparing for college today is going to be satisfied with not having high-speed internet access? There are towns in my district that don't have good access to internet, and the moms and dads will drive their son or daughter and park in a parking lot of the public library or park in the parking lot of town hall to get to access a broadband wireless connection. That's crazy. And that's something that I view my job in the legislature, I'm sure Senator Little does as well, and Senator Ritchie, to articulate that to the folks in New York City that are used to a cop on every corner, a fire truck around the block, hundreds of people there that are able to assist you. That while our ruralness is a great asset, it's something that we choose to live in because it's so beautiful, but there are real issues that come with that. And it's nice to see the governor being proactive on this, making an investment in us in upstate New York. He's done it before on many other fronts, but this is one that's been important to me, and I know a lot of my colleagues that have spoken already and the other supervisors that are here, and certainly Senator Little's been a champion on this for a long time, the infrastructure investment that needs to be made in the North Country and frankly in all of upstate. So I congratulate the governor and his staff for recognizing this issue and stepping forward, and I look forward to playing my part as we move forward in Albany. However this evolves, I imagine certainly it's a precursor to the budget. I hope that this is in one of the budget bills that I like, but there's that dance that we play in Albany too. And I don't have a line item yes or no vote, unfortunately. But certainly this is this by itself is a great initiative, and I know it's one that's recognized by everyone in the room, whether you're from the private sector, from the government sector, from the education sector. It's a tremendous resource for all of us, and so I thank the governor and lieutenant governor for making the effort here. So. But with that said, I'd like to introduce my good friend and my mentor and somebody that, my big sister, my favorite senator, with close second, Senator Ritchie. But anyway, Senator Betty Little. Betty.
There. Well, the weather outside is frightful, but look at the crowd. This would only happen in the North Country. Of that, I'm positive of. So thanks to all of you for being here. It's really, really appreciated. And to Governor Hochul, thank you for being here today. It was my first opportunity to meet with the governor, so I appreciate you being here. Thank you very, very much. This is really an exciting announcement. There are good announcements and there are other announcements. To me, this is one of the most exciting announcements that the governor could be making. The investment in what rural and all of New York State needs the most, and that is more broadband, accessibility, and bringing all of us into the 21st century. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by my cohort in the Senate, Senator Patty Ritchie. We sit next to each other, and we do talk a lot. And along with Joe Griffo and Hugh Farley, we are known as the Woodchuck Conference. But we take that as being ferocious. So everybody has to be careful with us. But, you know, infrastructure, when you think infrastructure, you think roads, bridges, water, sewer. Really, broadband is right up there, and in my mind, a priority. I will tell you, areas that don't have it do not benefit economically as to the areas that do have it. One of my sons was getting married, which he did, but we were looking at venues. And I was pretty excited about this place. I said, this looks nice, and, you know, they have motel and everything attached. He said, Mom, this place doesn't have cell coverage. There's no way I would have it here. So it's true, but he said he had friends coming from New York City. They had to keep in contact with their babysitters and family that may be watching their children. So our future is definitely in broadband. And this announcement is really, really good because we know that what we need the most in the Adirondack Park, particularly, but in our rural areas, even outside of it, is more year-round population. And we're probably not going to get a company come in with 2,000 jobs and open up in the park or open up in the North Country. But what we are going to get is people that can come here and who can telecommute and who can work and bring other people here as well. In Keene, where several years ago they were able to provide broadband internet service, it wasn't as big as what they call broadband now, to 95% of the residents of the town of Keene, and there are a lot of second home residents there. Recently, they did a survey and asked these people, do you stay longer? What's your weekend like? Can you extend it to 4 or 5 days? Do you stay a week or 2 weeks instead of just the 1 week? And the answer was a resounding yes. So it works, it will help us, it will help all of New York State. I mean, it isn't just for us, but I hope we get a big chunk of that money. Absolutely. So the last program was Connect New York, and I was really pleased to see we had a lot of applications to that, but I was so pleased because, Patty, don't listen to this, but my district got the most money. So that really helped us, and we have implemented it. You know, it's working. We're not sitting on the money. We're not, you know, trying to decide what to do. We know what needs to be done, and we have done a tremendous amount of it already. And when you add introducing the private partnership with private sector and coming up with $1 billion, that is really going to make a difference, and we're going to get a huge chunk of it. And I know that because we need it. And the governor has been here before, and I've been in communities with him where I've heard them say, how come the cell phone doesn't work? We were at one place in Indian Lake, and if you recall, it started working the following week. There was a tower that was up and hadn't gotten turned on by a certain carrier. It got turned on. So, but by being here and interacting with us and actually being part of our community, and many times bringing, as Dan said, the legislators from New York City and downstate and out in Buffalo and all that here, the governor understands what's going on here. He's not blind to the rural areas and the, you know, the no growth in some places. So he's been very helpful, and this is going to be the big thing for us as we go forward. And I'm very happy that we have great people here who will put together wonderful applications. We have many great carriers, local carriers, but who have worked so hard already, and many government organizations to work with them. So looking forward to all we can do in the next year, and we'll all celebrate when we get the big chunk of the money. And it's now my real pleasure, because I hadn't met Kathy Hochul until today, to introduce all of you to our Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Great to see everyone. A couple of references to the snow. I came from Buffalo just to get a break from it, so this was really nice to come out here this morning. You may have heard that the governor had to spend 6 days with us dealing with a little 7-foot snow emergency a couple months ago, and I had just been elected, And I thought I had this little transition time before I was sworn in January 1st, and I get the call from the text from the governor, it's 5 a.m., we got a meeting in Buffalo, and you're going to be there. It's like, so I found out what it's like to be lieutenant governor in addition to flying into the North Country in snowstorms. So it's quite an adventure already. There was some reference to my being here only a second time. That's in my official capacity. I was one of the vacationers, one of the people that came up here. Every time my kids were on the verge of not believing in Santa Claus anymore, we packed them up in the car, brought them up to Santa's workshop, and we all walked out of there believing. So truly, we vacationed here every year. My husband and I, we brought our kids up here. We camped, we whitewater rafted, we went to Austin Caverns, we went up Whiteface. We came down Veterans Memorial Highway once, and I remember seeing a lot of smoke, and our brakes went out, so that was kind of an adventure. But I love it up here. I love it up here, and I share the same passion for the North Country that the governor does. He's a true sportsman. He's excited about the next winter challenge, the Adirondack Challenge. In fact, our first cabinet meeting just a couple weeks ago, he introduced me to his team, and he pulled out from under the table a snowmobile helmet and said, "This is for our new lieutenant governor, because she's going to be up on Tug Hill with me. We're going to be doing all this." So I'm ready. I love it very much. So you can count on me. In fact, I'll be here next week. 1 week from today, I'll be at the Regional Economic Development Council meeting. And again, I have such an appreciation for the collaboration that goes on in that council. And you've been very successful. And I think it's because people put aside the territorial boundaries and forget about whose county, whose town, and we are same team here in the North Country. So I'm looking forward to being part of that with all of you who are members as well. And it's great to see a lot of friends out in the audience. You may know my history a little bit. I was a 14-year member of a town council, so I have a different point of view of Albany from what it was like sitting there with all the unfunded mandates coming down, so I understand that. But also my tenure as a county clerk. I got to know the most wonderful people. Joe, there's Joe. Joe brought me up here many times. We had conferences here in Lake Placid, and your pride in Essex County was incredible. You always talked about it with such passion in the work you did, and it's hard to hate a county clerk. Everybody loves it. Patty Ritchie, Kathy, other people get elected from county clerks because you're in a position where you actually can directly affect people's lives. You are the face of government to many people, and this is something that I took seriously, and I know my colleagues did. If you can give them good government service and treat them with respect and make sure your employees do, then people have a better perception of their government. So I loved being a county clerk. I thought that was as good as it gets, and I had other plans apparently, but I do such an appreciation for what you do and the perspective that someone like Patty can now bring to Albany, having been head of our association at the time and working with Joe. You heard from Rachel at the outset. Rachel is one of the rising stars, one of the true stars in technology in this country. She was actually recruited from the administration of the previous administration in New York City, and she was the first digital officer in New York City. So I always am so in awe of the governor's ability to attract the best and the brightest to his teams, and so she is one of the best. Let's give Rachel a round of applause for your work that you do. And David Salway is here as well, and he is the governor's director of New York State Broadband, and he has covered every corner of this state, trying to put together partnerships to make sure that $70 million, which sounded like a lot at the time before today's announcement, was going to be well spent and well invested to get us poised for today's announcement and the new place we're going to go. I'm real excited to work on this area as well. I come out of a technology background. My sister started a small startup in her garage unfortunately, she left New York State, one of those many people leaves New York State, and she started a business with my brother in her basement. She ended up growing to 500 employees. It was the fastest growing women-owned business in the state of Maryland. She was Inc. 500 4 times in a row, and I served as her legal counsel. So I negotiate all the contracts. So I have a little bit of knowledge of, I can't say I'm real current on everything, but I do have such an appreciation for how technology, internet, broadband, high-speed broadband fits into our economy. And I get the sense that every one of you gets it as well. And that's why you're here today, to know that that is the ability to take us to the next level as a state and truly as a nation as we compete in the global economy. A lot of people do come up to Lake Placid to unplug and relax and kick back, but the people who live here, those of you who are in homes and businesses and communities and in areas where we're trying to really promote, for example, tourism. You mentioned a hotel not having internet access. I cannot imagine being able to go to a hotel without internet access now because I'm expected to be on call all the time. And so as much as it's fun to come up here, relax, and kick back, We know that that can no longer be the case. That has to be historical. We can think about those days in the past. The present says we have to all be connected, and the governor gets it. And that's why today, as he's rolling out some items that are going to be announced in his next State of the State address, he's going to present them as part of a package, the New York State Opportunity for All. And this is one of the most significant announcements he's going to make because it's going to affect the lives of so many millions of people in our state. And we all know that in this day and age, the fastest road to opportunity is the information highway, and probably the comparable analogy would be the interstate highway system back in the 1950s, talking about how that was able to connect communities in a broad way and actually just enhance commerce and take us to a level. It was transformative, and it was essential in its day. That's what we have today. That's the opportunity that lies before us. We have to make sure we don't fall behind. Believe it or not, the country that invented the internet, and you can dispute who actually invented the internet, that's another debate. We now rank 35th out of 148 countries. We're Americans. We like to be first, don't we? We're very competitive. I want to be number one. I don't want to be 35th anymore in this country. But we also have to recognize we have some gaps. And in New York State, we have 2.5 million families who do not have access to high-speed internet. That is no longer sustainable, ladies and gentlemen. And half of our schools and 55,000 businesses in the state of New York do not have access to high-speed internet, high-speed broadband. And I know from personal experience, before I was asked by the governor to join his team, I had served as a member of Congress previously. I represented 7 very rural counties, so I feel at home when I'm in the North Country. I had one county, I think maybe 24,000 people, 54,000 cows. I mean, I had a very strong agricultural district, and I would talk to them. I'd say, what are some of the barriers? What's going on? I know you're creating products you want to get to market. And they said, we just simply do not have the online capacity to have a retail business. And that held them back, and that was a real problem. And I also knew that a lot of them took advantage of the temporary guest worker program through the Department of Labor to help with the crops and the planting season and the harvesting. And it turns out that they were not able at the time to be able to apply online. So I would talk to the Secretary of Labor in Washington. I said, I have farmers who are spending countless hours, these are very busy people, spending time filling out government applications and literally mailing them in order to get the temporary guest workers they need. So I was able to get that changed so you now can do it online. That's great news if you have online capabilities. But a lot of my farmers still could not even take advantage of that simple change to make their lives easier. So this is something that I feel personally about very strongly as an individual, someone who represented people in my previous position who were affected by this, and that's why I know today's announcement is going to be great news for people all over the state. And when we talk about high-speed internet, it's critical not just excelling in business, but also our schools. 7 out of 10 teachers are assigning homework that require a young person to use the internet. Think about that. Think about that. These are kids that we're trying to train. They got to compete for jobs, not just in the state, but globally. We're still trying to make sure we've got the best and the brightest workforce. I believe we do. But we have to continue investing in our young people, and that means they have to have this access. And they should not have to drive to a parking lot in order to get their homework done at night. This is America. This is New York State. We're not going to do that any longer. And 80% of Fortune 500 companies, when our young people graduate, we want them to get jobs, 80% of them expect our kids to be able to apply online. Okay, they're at home with mom and dad, there's no capability. How are they going to apply for a job somewhere else in the state or else even in their own community if they have no online access? And in the next decade, it is estimated that 77% of jobs will require digital skills. Think about that. People as old as me and older, wasn't a requirement, was it? Didn't need to know it. Didn't need to know. We got by with typewriters, pens, and pencils. This era, these young people need to have this access. We can't give our children a level playing field with equal opportunity in the competitive world if we still have a digital divide. And you heard a reference throughout history. New York State, we're known for innovation. We're proud of that. My forefathers worked on the Erie Canal. That was the gateway. That created a channel of commerce and opportunity that opened up the West to the entire world because we had the vision here in New York State. That was the 19th century. 20th century, not far down the road in Albany, we became the global center for nanotechnology and computer science. Right here in the state of New York, we innovate. This is the 21st century. Now is our opportunity to connect every single community, business, and school through the global economy, through high-speed internet. This is our opportunity. And I'm proud that since 2011, New York State has invested more than anyone. You heard Rachel talk about more than any other state. We've invested in broadband, but it just hasn't been enough. It just has not been enough. And I'm proud that those efforts were in great collaboration with the regional councils. As I mentioned, I'll be doing the same thing Lieutenant Governor Bob Duffy did, hopefully not getting the same back problems that he had from spending so many hours in a car. I'm watching out for that, but he was everywhere. And the governor has asked me to be his partner and take on the same responsibilities overseeing the regional councils. And I know that we are going to be listening to the communities of what their priorities are, and I know that this was a huge priority for the North Country, so we're very proud to be able to deliver on this promise to all of you. We have good internet access, but our governor says 95% access for our state is just not good enough any longer. And that's because today we still have 1 million New Yorkers who lacked high-speed internet. You know, I just heard that just down the road in Hamilton County, 10 miles from here, 0% of households, is this correct? Hamilton, who's Hamilton County? All right, 0% of households, not one resident, has access to high-speed broadband, high-speed.
They will once the projects are completed.
Okay. But today, we've got a problem. We've got a problem. And I think about that. That means there's not a single person who can sit in their home office and have a technology startup, correct? They just can't do it. They do not have the ability today. Someone wants to sell maple syrup that they're manufacturing in their backyard online. They can't do that. They can't do that. I'm not sure they can even watch Netflix movies. People watching House of Cards in your county? I mean, you're not... I can't. That's tragic to me. You're not finding out what Frank Underwood's up to. There's something wrong. You can't do video Skype calls, and I'm even told you can't do a Google Hangout. I don't know what a Google Hangout is, but I sure want to do it. It sounds kind of fun, doesn't it? I just found out from Rachel we're not doing Google Hangouts in the state of New York, so we're changing all that. We're changing all that. And we all know that broadband is critical for jobs and education equality, but think of it from another perspective. Sometimes here in the North Country, we have some natural disasters, correct? You've been through a lot, and I had the opportunity to tour some of the facilities, the new Keene Fire Hall. I've walked. I saw where the high water mark was on some building. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And the governor, I know, was up here, just became such a part of this community to try and help people recover from our disasters. Irene. But you think about the access that this can create for our emergency management teams and the access to give information to people living in these communities. That is critical. That is a life-saving change. That is why it transcends just the economy and jobs, which we know are so important. This comes down to taking care of our families and our kids and their well-being. And also you talk about access to health care in places like upstate and North Country. My congressional district, people had to travel a long way to get to see a doctor. And so I was introducing legislation in Congress which would expand telehealth services so people could have access through the internet to be able to have a face-to-face conversation with a healthcare professional. This initiative is going to allow that access for people all over this area, and I know it's critically important. So that's important. I'll tell you, this announcement here today, being in this room with all of you, this is like being in the room when they announced they're going to fund the Erie Canal. I mean, this is how significant. You're going to be able to tell your grandkids, I sat there and I heard this announcement of Governor Cuomo's commitment of $1 billion, part private, part public sector commitment to making sure that not just someday in the future, because that's real easy for politicians to say, yeah, we're going to do that someday. No, we have a deadline. And I have said, can we make the announcement when it's all completed not be in January in the North Country? But they said they'll try to do it in January. But we promise, and the commitment of the governor and this team, and Rachel, you better get to work this afternoon, because I'm putting you on this. I'm putting you on this. January 1, 2019, at the end of the next 4 years, you'll see that every business in this community, in this state, is connected. We'll have the fastest speed broadband of any state in the nation, getting back our New York State swagger and our pride. We'd like to be first. We'd like to be number one. Is that correct? And you've heard it here right here and now. And I'm so proud that I could be part of this significant announcement. I hope you are as well. And get out there and tell the people that hope is on the way. And you are here to hear it first. And I want to thank you for the work you're going to be doing to help get this word out, but also our partners throughout the entire system to make this become a reality. Thank you much for being here. And look forward to meeting every one of you individually. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And that concludes today's very exciting announcement. Thank you again so much for joining us here today, and we appreciate your partnership in making this a reality. Thank you so much.